evening. My name is Ina Winston, and I'm an attorney at the Chicago Legal Clinic. I'm your sub for today. Our usual host, Carolyn Schoenberger, is jetting in from Italy. And I have with me Miya Saint-Luis, who's one of my wonderful interns, along with Louisa Quintal, who's the intern who also works for me. So let me tell you a little bit about the clinic, about what I do, a little bit about the immigration issues right now that are so hot, and then we're going to turn the show over to Miya. She's going to tell you about her experiences as a law student and how she came to this path, what law school is like. So listen up, Gen Zers. You might get some real information here. So here we go. The Chicago Legal Clinic, as most of you know, was established in 1982 by two people who were then law students, then Father Paprocki and Ed Grossman. And they saw the need for high-quality legal services to help the people in the South Chicago area when the steel mills shut down. So they began with a small office in South Chicago, and through the years, that small office has grown to be our organization, of which I'm very proud. When we do a variety of types of work. We have offices in downtown, we have offices in Austin, our office, which is in Pilsen, and we still have our South Chicago flagship office. We do so many different types of wonderful work. We do family law, we do bankruptcy. I personally do immigration and some guardianship law. We do civil litigation, contract law. We also help to staff the desk at the Daily Center to provide pro bono legal advice to people. And they often do, for example, parentage and child support cases. So we handle a gamut of problems, and I hope that you will feel free to call us. Our number is, here it is, wrong direction, sorry about that.
Right here.
773-731-1762, that's our intake number. And if you have a problem and we can help you, we will certainly do our level best to give you the best quality representation at very low, below market rates. I do want to talk about our office in Pilsen. We focus on immigration law primarily, and also, as I say, I do guardianships. Immigration's become a very hot topic lately, and I got a call today from a reporter for ABC News who asked if I could see the effects of immigration, if she could talk to somebody. So I said, well, you really should talk to somebody who lives in the neighborhood, but I came to work Saturday, and the effects were self-evident. There was no parking whatsoever because everybody was locked in their houses. There were no children playing on the streets. And Pilsen is a very friendly neighborhood, and it was a lovely day. Normally you would see older people sitting on the stoop talking to their neighbors, their family members. None of that. Everybody was in the house. And that is probably the wisest place to be in a situation like this where everyone is under the stress of raids. Because the problem with raids is, in theory, the government says we're trying to only go after people who have recent deportation orders, but in reality, every time you see a raid, there's so much collateral damage. It's a difficult situation. So I would like to talk to you first about knowing your rights. The ACLU and ALA, which is the American Immigration Lawyers Association, both have some really fine printouts available, and if you have a computer, you should go online. And the ALA website explains know your rights if ICE stops you in public. And basically your right is the right to remain silent and to tell the officer, I have chosen to remain silent. And then you can ask if you're free to leave, and if the officer says no, you say, okay, well, I'm remaining silent. And if you're asked where you were born or how you entered the United States, you don't have to give that information. They do have Know Your Rights cards that you can show to the officer, and you can refuse to give your identity documents, but do not give false documents and don't lie about who you actually are. That's not a good strategy. The best strategy, basically to put it bluntly, is to keep your mouth shut. And you do have the right to speak to a lawyer, and no matter what happens, don't sign any paperwork, because you don't want to be signing an expedited removal order. Do not sign paperwork. Just say, I need to see my lawyer. Now, if ICE visits your home, you don't have to open the door unless there's a valid search warrant with your name, your address, and it's been issued by a judge, not an administrative order by an immigration officer, but a search warrant signed by a judge. Now, an ICE deportation warrant is not the same as a search warrant. If they only have an ICE deportation warrant, they cannot legally come inside the house unless you agree to allow them in. So if the officers say they have a search warrant and it's been signed by a judge, then just ask them to slide it under the door so you can see if that's a fact. And if it doesn't have your correct name, it doesn't have your address on it, and it's not signed by a judge, you don't have to let the person inside. And again, you have the right to remain silent. So those are the very basics of how to handle a visit by an ICE officer. Another question that often comes up is, well, what happens when, for example, a loved one has been involved in a traffic accident and was taken in by, and ICE was called, or was involved in some kind of a criminal matter, or just has been apprehended by ICE? How do I find out where they are? There is an online detained website, and you can go to the online detained website to put in the person's A number. If you know that, that's their immigration identifying number. And if you don't know that, the person's biographic information, their name, their date of birth, and their place of birth. They are supposed to be updating it within at least 8 hours, so hopefully they do. If you still can't find that person, you can call the Enforcement and Removal Office for your area and ask where they are being held. For Illinois, it's the Chicago Field Office is the number to call. That's the building, it's USCIS at 101 West, well, what used to be Congress and is now Ida B. Wells Drive. And the phone is 312-347-240. And when you call, have as much information as you can about the person's full name, their date of birth, and their A number, because you will need to find where this person is detained and if they're eligible for bail. You might want to think, if you are in the situation where you are, say, either an undocumented person or you are a documented person living in a mixed status family, you might want to think about what should be done with your children in the event of a raid. Somebody has to go and pick the kids up from school if the parents are detained. And if the children are detained with the parents and the children are documented, somebody who's documented needs to be the one to pick them up. Illinois has a short form for short-term guardianships. We do many of these. It's not a complex form. It doesn't require a lot of legal understanding. It's just short and to the point. And by the way, if you have a question and you'd like to call us and ask a question about immigration, please do that. We're here to serve you and answer any questions you may have. The short-term guardianship is a simple 2-3-page form that says that I'm the guardian, I am the parent of so-and-so, and I live at such and such an address, and I'm designating, and you should identify a documented person if you can, to be the guardian of my children, and you identify the children. And you specify the date on which it's to take effect, that is on the date that I'm detained by immigration authorities, and you specify when it ends. It ends when you say it ends, and normally we put it on the day that I'm released. And if you don't put in a date, it ends 365 days after it's been signed. It does have to be witnessed by 2 people, and the it's witnessed by two witnesses. It's signed by the short-term guardian, and usually we ask that both parents sign these forms, because if not, you want to have a consent by the child's other parent. These are not forms that can be used essentially to go around somebody's custodial agreements. I mean, you cannot use this to abrogate a custodial agreement. So that is the short-term guardianship that I wanted to bring to your attention. I would like to talk now to Miya, and I'm glad you're here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you go to school and what you've been doing for us at the clinic and how you came to this path.
So my name is Miya. I am a rising 2L at Loyola Chicago, and I am interning at Chicago Legal Clinic. I'm originally from Kansas City, but I have moved here and stayed here in Chicago for the past 5 years about. And I actually applied to work at Chicago Legal Clinic online through my school service, and I actually came to Chicago Legal Clinic not knowing anything about immigration. I had never worked in immigration. I knew what naturalization was, I knew what citizenship was, but I kind of knew the very basics, which is interesting considering the fact that my dad actually is an immigrant from Haiti. Growing up, I didn't have a ton of exposure to his immigration process or the immigration process of my family members, but after coming to Chicago Legal Clinic, I have learned a lot about what that process entails. So what I do there is I am an intern, so I do anything from making copies to meeting with clients. I've improved my Spanish quite a bit since working in the clinic. I would call myself conversant in Spanish, but definitely not fluent. But I have taken clients who speak only Spanish. I've worked with them on their cases. I've helped them prepare affidavits. More recently, I've written a few motions, done a lot of other intake work, written letters, things like that that go out to clients. But the majority of my work and the majority of, I think, immigration work a lot of times is the forms. They are infamous, and there are dozens and dozens of forms that have to be filled out. Any one immigration case could have, upwards of 5, 6, 7 forms attached to it. So a lot of the work that I've been doing is preparing those forms, checking them for accuracy, and then preparing them to go out to USCIS, which is the federal immigration.
Let me interject a little bit on the topic of forms. Because the forms, while they are voluminous and intimidating, they look deceptively simple.
Yes.
So in the end of the day, we always get so many clients who have come to do something either by themselves, or they've gone to a notary, or they've gone to an incompetent attorney who's really not an immigration expert. And the end result is that they have filled out these forms and had a disastrous result. I have had more than one case where a person has applied for a waiver for the documented person has tried to get a waiver for their undocumented spouse, and and it was poorly done or not done at all in the way it should have been done, and that spouse has been in Mexico after the consular interview and had to do another waiver totally. We had to start all over.
And these forms aren't easy to fix. You can't just say, oops, made an error. That's actually this. There's a whole process that comes about when you've made a mistake on a form. And even if it's an innocent mistake, sometimes it can be seen as a misrepresentation.
Right. And so I urge you, before you do anything with an immigration issue, at least see an attorney, get a consultation, and find out what the correct path is. I see people whose loved ones have went down to Mexico to get a waiver that they did not have to get. They could have adjusted here, right here, with what we call a 245I case, and never left the United States. There are so many mistakes that we come upon. And do not go to notaries. Notaries are not lawyers. They just notarize documents. It's not like a notario in Mexico who is thought to have some legal knowledge. A notary in the United States simply notarizes documents. Okay, they're not lawyers. Don't go to them. Don't make that mistake. I see so many botched cases. It breaks your heart to see someone for whom it is truly an extreme hardship to have their undocumented spouse be stranded in another country in this situation unnecessarily. It's just heartbreaking. Don't you be the one who's the victim to this. Let me ask you another question. How did you make the choice to go to law school to begin with, and how did you prepare yourself?
That's a really big question. I think, well, from the very base level, when I was little, my mom would always tell me I was good at arguing. I was really good at arguing. I was really good at trying to get people to do what I wanted them to do. I guess you could call that manipulation now, but then it was super cute, and I was just really good at arguing. I was good at speaking to people. And I did debate in high school, and my high school debate coach was actually the first person who said, maybe you should think about, becoming a lawyer. And I put that to the back of my mind because I was like, that's too much school, too much reading, too much work, too many years. And then I actually graduated from DePaul, and I ended up majoring in sociology and criminology. And while I was studying criminology, we learned a lot about the criminal justice system. And I consider myself like a true crime junkie in that sense. I like all of the shows and the podcasts. But after learning kind of more intricate details about the criminal justice system, I became pretty infatuated with criminal law. And that is actually what led me to decide to pursue law school.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you feel that there's any particular course of study as an undergraduate that prepares you better than any other course of study for law school?
Personally, I believe this is a myth. So I think you can major in just about anything and become a great attorney. I don't really think it matters what you have your course of study in, as long as it's something that you're dedicated to. I think in terms of law school, one of the main components, I believe, is adequate time management. And I think your bachelor's degree prepares you for that. It can come in handy if you're someone like me who definitely knows they want to study criminal law. Then sure, criminology could be helpful. If you're somebody that knows they want to do transactions, something like international law could be super helpful. But I don't think any one major is, the key to success in law school. Because honestly, when you're a 1L, you're starting from the ground up. You don't know anything, regardless of what your undergraduate degree was. We are all newborn babies as 1Ls, so it doesn't truly matter what course of study you take in undergrad.
I have to agree with you about that. I think the most important thing in terms of the prior studies is that the person is a good reader, actually likes reading, and that the person likes writing, because a large component of being a good attorney is persuading people through the written word.
Yeah.
So you have to actually come to like writing. And I also think that law is one of those fields where there's sort of a niche for everybody. Some people don't like court work. Some people want to do appellate work and they like it. Some people want to do transactional work. Some people don't want work that's extraordinarily emotional and adversarial like family law. Some people want to do immigration law that is more paper-oriented like employment law. Other people want to handle deportation defense. There's so many different types. The idea that there's a particular kind of person and there's a particular course of study that's better than some other study, that is really a myth. I agree with you on that.
I agree.
So tell me, what has law school been like for you?
Law school has been, first, I would say, super rewarding. That's not to say that it hasn't had its challenges. My first semester of law school really shook me a lot, just because of how difficult it really was. I think it's difficult for everyone. I don't think anyone has an easy first semester of law school. But for me, after I graduated from undergrad, I worked for a year in a law firm full-time as a legal receptionist. And I think that it definitely is a massive change. So you're spending hundreds of hours studying, reading, writing. That is not a myth. The amount of work and reading and writing you have to do is not a myth. It is so true. If anyone ever tells you that they got through their, first semester of law school without reading a book, they're a liar. They're a
And
liar.
There's a lot of people who lie about
They're a
how easy
liar.
it was. I didn't study for the
They're
test.
a liar.
Okay, whatever.
I call them on that. They're a liar. It's not true. There is a lot of work, and I think that after having taken a year break, I wasn't necessarily used to, spending 5 hours at a time reading. I wasn't used to, writing 15-page papers. So I think it was definitely a really jarring adjustment for me at first, and I think a lot of my peers as well. Some people adjust better than others to the switch, but for me it was a little difficult. But my second semester, I had a good handle on everything. I had taught myself the best ways to study, the best ways to read, the best ways to, write a case brief, the best ways to, pick out the important elements and holdings of a case. So my second semester for me was a lot less stressful and a lot more fun. You do have fun in law school. You don't only study. You don't only, read 100-page cases from the Supreme Court. You do have a lot of fun. I was lucky enough to meet really, really cool people at my law school, and you can kind of suffer through it together, which was awesome. But yeah, I think all of the work that I've done so far has been super, super rewarding. And if you would have asked me my first semester if I regretted going to law school, I might say, maybe it's really expensive. But after my second semester, I would say not at all. I'm really glad to be doing it.
Viewers, if you have a question, an immigration question, or a question about law school, speak up. We're right here, and we have a few minutes left.
Yeah, give us a call.
And we'd like to hear from you. So what do you want to do? What does the future hold?
Well, before coming to Chicago Legal Clinic, I thought I definitely wanted to do only criminal law. But after working with the clients that I've met, after working in the office, and seeing how impactful the work is that you and the other attorneys do, I think that I definitely want to continue doing immigration in some capacity. But I think for the most part, I'm focusing on continuing my track toward criminal law. I love to talk. I love litigating. I love, being in a courtroom. I like that energy, so I'm definitely going to continue on that path. But I think that working at Chicago Legal Clinic has given me so many amazing tools and so much amazing knowledge that I think I could use to help people. So I definitely want to continue doing immigration law as well.
So we're almost at the end of our show, and I just want to say that the Chicago Legal Clinic is really an extraordinary organization. We have many truly dedicated attorneys who really do their level best for you. And people are not afraid of difficult cases. There are people who go in, we're available, we're on the rotation call for people who are the victims of domestic violence. I'm going to be going back to that area of law, which I did when I first started immigration law, which is helping people who are the victims of domestic violence. So you can always call us at that number, 773-731-1762. We're on the domestic violence rotation to send people in to get orders of protection and to help you through the process if you are the victim of domestic violence. So we do many different areas, and we invite you to call, and we invite you to see the wonderful work that we do. And so go look at our website. It's a great organization. And we thank you for your support, we thank you for your interest, and we thank you for watching this edition of Immigration Issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.